Hello, everyone. I can see the chat is already active. So if you can hear us or see us, you guys already know what to do. Please type llama in the chat or feel free to let us know where you guys are viewing this live stream from. I can see hello from Germany. Good afternoon, Llama from the Netherlands. Ingrid, hi River, hi Gloria. Hi, River again, Manuela. She's the first visitor. Okay, I think we're good. I think everyone hears us, so that's awesome. All right, and lots of people already are coming in. That's great. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us today. And while I'll let you guys get acquainted in the chat, let me just go ahead and introduce myself. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to another live demo with Etcher. And today I will be joined by an amazing teacher, a brand ambassador, who will teach us how to paint realistic autumn leaf in a watercolor. And she's no other than Françoise. And okay, all right. Lots of excitement in the chat. That's awesome. I know you guys are very excited, but before I hand things over to Françoise right here, let me just go over a few things. So if you're a newbie right here, thank you so much for supporting us. If you're a frequent follower, thank you so much as well. If you do have questions, just type them in the chat. Just type question in all caps, and we'll go ahead and raise them. If it's related to what Francoise is doing at the moment. If not, we'll go ahead and save them in a Q&A portion later. And also, we have a private Facebook group, and we highly encourage you to join that because if you're too shy to post your works in the future in a whole wide world, you can actually post it there. Francoise is part of that group. And if you will be following along her demo today, you can post it there, and she will definitely give feedback as well. So I guess that's something that you can highly appreciate. And let me just go ahead and drop that link real quickly so that you could go ahead and check that out. And also, if you like what Françoise will be teaching us today, you can sign up for her mini workshop, which we'll be discussing in detail later on. So let me just go ahead and drop that in a link. And I think that is everything for me on my end. So without any further ado and any more talking, I'll leave it things to Françoise's hands to bring us some creative action today. So Françoise, why not start with introducing yourself and telling us what we're going to be doing today?
Sure. So hi everybody, I'm Françoise. I'm a French artist and I actually paint in watercolor and mixed media. And today we're going to paint a realistic leaf, autumn leaf with watercolors. So thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you, Kathleen, for hosting. I'm going to start by showing you what we'll be painting today. So we'll be painting this autumn leaf. It's a very realistic one, but you'll see it's more simple than it seems, actually. I'm going to show you all the techniques. And I can show you also similar works I've done in that style. So that's another realistic leaf in the same style. And then we have a pumpkin in that style also. So this is the kind of work that I do. And I'm actually going to start now by just quickly introducing the supplies I'll be using. So I'm going to be using Arche watercolor paper. It's 100% cotton paper. I also used some masking tape to tape that sheet firmly onto the table I'm working on so it doesn't keep moving around as I paint. That's very convenient, and I do it all the time when I paint. I'll be using also these paintbrushes. So just a round paintbrush. It's a Raphael paintbrush. And those pointy round and pointed paintbrushes, which are silver brush black velvets. That's really helpful for details. For paints, these are Art Philosophy paints, and I'm using autumn colors today. So yellow, then orange that I made using yellow and red together. I mixed them both. Red, green, and brown. So pretty simple colors, nothing, too fancy. What else? I have a paper towel. I have my water jars ready also to rinse my brushes, and then I'll show you another tool I'm going to use later in the demo. Okay, so we're going to get started. So the first thing that I'm going to do, because I already drew the sketch, as you can see, the first thing I'm going to do is paint a first layer. And to do that, for a first layer, usually I go with mixes that are pretty watery. And that's because I want them to be able to mix together. I want the colors to mix together. So if it's too thick, if I add too much paint in my mixes, they won't mix very well. So I like to start with watery mixes first. And then there's another reason too, is that since you see I have to paint the whole leaf and I'm not going to use the same color throughout the whole painting, I want to make sure that the paint doesn't have time to dry. So the wetter it is, the more water there is in it, the longer it's going to take to actually dry. So I'm going to have time to add colors in the paint that I just dropped. And the line here is not going to dry as fast as if it was super thick. So here I'm going to start by adding a little bit of orange in there. And you see it's actually spreading really well. So I'm just adding it very randomly. That's going to contribute to realism if you do things quite randomly. You don't want it to be too perfect. I keep rinsing my paintbrush in between because I'm going to change colors now. So here now I'm going with orange, and I'm actually starting here where, you know, that line, that green line is, because I don't want it to dry. And I keep going. Now, if the edges are not perfect for that first layer, don't worry about it. The goal is just to cover up the whole leaf, because, you know, we'll have plenty of ways to fix it later to make the edges nicer. So do not worry about that. A good thing about realism is that we work in layers, and layers are a great way to fix things. Because the hardest thing in watercolor is, I think, in my opinion, is the first layer, the looser layer, because that's the foundation. So here, while still wet, I'm just gonna add a little bit of red. I'm trying to get several colors in there to create a variety. It's going to be more interesting than just having, you know, green here, orange here, and another color there. Now here, let's just switch over to red. And as you may know, with watercolors, this is going to dry pretty light. And that's why we're going to layer later and add more depth to this. This is really just a foundation.
And these are very vibrant hues, if we must say.
Yes.
We have an interesting question from the chat, by the way.
Yes.
Can we please state which colors are we adding as we add them? So
Sure.
that's
Okay. So I'm just going to recap. I added green first. You can take any green that you have. I added green, then I put orange into those green parts here. Then I went on with red, and now I'm adding yellow here.
That's helpful. So, if someone has like the primaries for the paints, I think this would be extremely helpful.
Yes, they're actually pretty simple colors that I picked, and really you can use any yellow, any red you have, any green. It's not going to make much of a difference. Okay, so I'm adding a little bit of red here, again, to create that variety in the leaf. And I'm rinsing my brush. Now I'm going to pick up brown, and I'm going to start painting the stem here. And I can even add a little bit of brown here. And the reason why I add some here is so there's not a clear separation line between the stem and the leaf. This way it looks more natural. I'm rinsing my brush. I'm going to pick up, let's say, green, and I'm going to add a little bit here just to make, you know, that stem a little more interesting. Let's add a little bit of orange. I'm overlapping colors as I go also. That creates new variations of those colors when I do that. And now again, brown towards the bottom here.
So essentially, we just let the colors mix and do their thing, right?
That's right. So this is the first layer. It's just a simple layer, and then we're going to build up depth, and you're going to see with the second layer, it's all going to come through. It's going to be very different. So what I'm going to do now, Kathleen, is I'm going to mute myself because I would like to dry this layer. and it's gonna make some noise, so I wouldn't want to inconvenience our guests. So I'll
No
just mute
worries.
myself for 15 seconds or so.
Okay, and while we're doing that, we might want to tap real quick. Okay, that's awesome. All right. And while Francoise is doing that, I'll be dropping in the link to her mini workshop. So far, we've only gone like 10 minutes in this demo, and look how much vibrant piece we have achieved already. So, if you're interested in joining her mini workshop, we'll be doing a different piece. Not just a single leaf, but a whole picture already. Francoise is going to talk about that later on, real quick, but I'll drop that link right here, and I can see some of you have already signed up. And while we're waiting for that to dry, you could go ahead and type in the chat what other fall inspired pieces would you wish to learn how to paint? And
I'm back,
Francois is gonna.
Kathleen.
Yep, I got you.
So I'm gonna go ahead with a second layer, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Now this is dry. So I made sure to dry this first so the color set in really well. And now we're gonna add more color. We're gonna proceed in the same way, but you're gonna see that the colors we added here are gonna come out in a very interesting way. The before and after is gonna be very different. So now let's go with green. I'm gonna repeat. Again, you want to use something that's quite watery. That allows you to take your time a little more. And it's the layering of the colors that's going to make this look more realistic. You can already see the oranges we added before that turn into a different color. Now let's pick up a little bit of red here. And you can already start fixing edges if you want. You just need a little thicker of paint here to make sure it shows. And you just add paints, like I said earlier, randomly. Now I'm going with orange. And here I'm trying to make sure this doesn't dry, so I keep going back and forth, you know. When I'm busy in one part, I know this is drying, so I keep coming back to it, making sure to re-wet it.
So, by the way, Francoise, while you're applying that layer right here,
Yes.
I just gonna dictate to you a few answers which have been indicated in the chat. So they did mention some pine cones, birch tree landscapes, pumpkins, or just a fall landscape. Bulrushes in grass out of pond and fall colors. Those are pretty interesting. And speaking of landscapes, I think that is somehow related to what Françoise will be doing in her mini workshop. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes, so in the mini workshop, I will be painting a forest scene. It's going to be an autumn forest scene. And in this one, we'll actually have some background, first of all. Then we'll have tree trunks and leaves, a bunch of leaves. So it's going to be a little bit different on this one. And it will be a good one to really see how to include a bunch of leaves into a landscape without drawing them all very precisely, but still having it look realistic. And I'm actually going to use some realistic techniques and also realism techniques and expressive techniques. So that'll be a different type of painting as we're doing today, but still the same realistic outcome. All right, so here I'm adding yellow to finish, and I can add, let's see, maybe a little bit of red. And it really, you know, you can decide what you want to add. I mean, I'm just doing it very randomly. All right, now a little bit of brown for the stem. I switch to green. A little bit of orange. And again, brown. And what I'm going to do here is actually pick up that pigment, that brown pigment, right from the pan. So now it's pretty thick. I don't know if you can see here. It's pretty thick here. And I'm going to add some at the bottom here. That's really concentrated. So it really creates a strong shadow. And that's going to look very nice. Shadows and highlights are very important if you want to paint realistically. They enhance the painting really well. All right, so here we're done with that second layer.
We can all agree it just gave that different sense of depth to it. That's awesome.
Yes. I'll mute myself again, dry it, so we don't have
No
to wait.
worries.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
No worries. And by the way, just a quick reminder, we're more than halfway through our session today. So this is a pretty quick live demonstration. But if you wish to learn how to paint the landscape that Françoise has mentioned earlier, you can go ahead and sign up for the mini workshop. It's actually, the link is available in the video description, and it's a step-by-step process. It's for 90 minutes, so you can definitely prepare ahead of time, and you can follow along as well. Hello from Australia. We've got some newcomers. Okay, just real quick. And all these things that we have answered earlier in the chat, I think you can get inspiration from Francoise's Instagram account. You could go ahead and check that out in your free time. And we're back. Awesome.
Yes. Okay, so this is dry, and now I'm gonna paint the veins of the leaf. And I'm gonna do this with this tool, which is an X-Acto knife. It's like a cutter. So be very careful when you use this. And it's used, some artists use it to create highlights because it's going to scratch the paper and the white of the paper is gonna come through. So to create fine lines, it's great. And I thought it would be great to create the veins here. You could paint the veins, or you could create them that way. There's several ways to go about it. So let's do it. And you're going to see it's going to bring some nice highlights. So I'm just scratching the paper. I think you can hear.
That's some ASMR as well. We can all agree with that.
And again, I'm being pretty random about the way I'm doing the veins here.
So, Françoise, if someone is very interested in doing the same technique and they don't have this X-Acto knife,
Yes.
Can you recommend any other materials they can use to substitute for?
They could use a cutter. Is that how you call it? You know, you would use that for things you do at the house sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, cardboard or yeah. So they could use that. Just be very cautious if you do. And or I guess a very sharp knife too, but it will be less convenient, I think, a little bit. Yeah, I think this cutter is actually better. Or, of course, if you want, you can also use a white gel pen. Why not, to create those highlights? But then it will be very, very bold, so it won't look as natural. Because see here, we don't have like, it's not, we see the whites coming out, but it's not very, very obvious. While if you were to use a gel pen, then it would be quite obvious. You can also use white gouache. And as long as you have a light hand with the white gouache, you could create a similar effect. Or, you know, just use darker paints. Like I said, there's several ways to go about it. Here I'm finishing with a few here. And we are done with the veins. All right, so now we're gonna paint some detail. And this is gonna contribute with layering to the realism to add a few details. So first I'm going to start with adding texture, and texture is going to help us fix places we don't like or places we would like to add another color to. Let's say here, for instance, I think this area here is quite bland and light. I want to add color. Let's pick up, I'm trying to decide on the color. Why not get, yeah, that's yellowish orange. I'm going to add it here with a paintbrush. And now with my finger, I'm going to come and tap to create texture. It's very easy to do. And see, it brings a lot of light to this area in just a few seconds. And you can do that anywhere you want. Again, no specific order or anything. You just, go with the flow and see what fits you with your painting.
This is mind blowing. I mean, I guess for me, but I guess it's also the same for others. And we're only just 20 minutes, and we've done what this piece? Like, I believe we can do so much more in the 90-minute workshop as well. Also, yeah.
Yes. And the thing, with realism is that sometimes I find people think it's very difficult. And yes, of course, there are techniques that you need to experiment on and, learn about, like everything. But it doesn't take that long, especially with watercolor. Compared to, for example, colored pencil, which is very known for realism, you do the same thing with watercolors in like 3 times, well, you do it like very fast, I mean, compared to another medium. So I really like that about watercolors is you can do anything. You can even have a loose style with a realistic style. And actually in the mini workshop, I will show you expressive techniques added to realism techniques. And you can really have both and create anything you want. So, and I use those techniques for everything, portraits, um, landscapes, anything. All right, so let's add some in the middle. Now, why not add a little bit of green? Here I find that maybe it's lacking a little bit of green. That's just, what I think. So it's
Right.
just my own appreciation. So I'm just going to add a little bit in the same way.
So, Francoise, I believe someone's very observant right here from the your audience.
Yes.
We've got an interesting question. What is the type and size of brush you're using right now? It looks different than the blacks ones that we first
Yes.
used.
This one is a round paintbrush. It's the size, it says 2/0 on it. And this is just a simple round paintbrush. There are plenty of them that you can find, but it's quite convenient because it's pretty small. So even if you don't have like pointy one like these, for instance, you could still get a lot of things done with that, with just that alone. So I like to use
God.
it a lot. All
And I
right.
think that answers Christine's question right here, which is why are we using Raphael brush compared to this silver brush?
Just because I find it just convenient to drop the paints. It's not just a habit of mine. I would say that here I didn't really need to make detail. I just need to deposit paint. So this is very convenient for that. When I need to get into the corners, like, these corners, for instance, a paintbrush like this is going to be more convenient. So you'll see me use this for detailed work, if that makes sense. So it's just like a habit of mine to work with these paintbrushes, and this will just be a nice help for me. All right, so now I'm just gonna splatter a little bit. So I'm gonna use concentrated mix of red, which means I didn't add a lot of water. It's quite thick. And with that same paintbrush, which is actually very convenient to splatter, I find, I go ahead and add a little bit. So the more water in your paintbrush, the bigger your splatters will be. So if you don't want them to turn out way too big for the leaf, make sure there's not too much water in it. You can test it aside. Then if the paint's very thick, the splatters will have a hard time coming out. So it's really a balance, of the water. Now I'll add some yellow ones too. And I'm not necessarily trying to cover the whole leaf, just, wanting to add a little something extra, little texture. And we're done with the details. Now we can move on to the shadows if you're ready.
I guess the audience is ready than ever.
Okay, so for the shadows, I'm going to use, here actually, I like this little palette for the little touches like this. So I'm going to use a very thick mix of brown. And the shadows are great because where we're going to put them on the leaf, you can actually reshape the leaf itself, and I'll show you how. But first, we're going to start with the stem. And I'm going to add here the start of the shadow of the stem, here and there. And then with a damp and clean paintbrush, see, I just make sure it's not too wet. I come here and I just drag the paint over to the other side. And so this creates that gradient. Here it's pretty dark and here it's pretty light. Here, of course, it's closer to wherever the leaf is resting on. So it's darker, and here it's just, moving upwards, so it's going to be lighter. So this is a great thing to do, to just use a clean paintbrush with water in it to just make sure the paint is not as dark. And now I'm going to keep going and add more shadows. And I like to fade the edge of the shadow with that clean and damp paintbrush. And here, let me show you. I don't know if you can see very well. Let's see, you want to reshape your leaf here. Since the paint is really dark, you can go as you want, overlap the leaf in the way that you want, and it will cover it up, and you just reshape it this way. Shape it better if you think maybe the edges are not as you like them. And see, again, I'm dragging that paint with that clean paintbrush to create soft shadows here.
Can we just say that the main word in the chat right now is just wow? Everyone is mind blown, I guess, of how this technique for shadow is. So,
Well, I'm glad you like it. Here I'm going to, I'm going to shape that side here very differently. See how it is? I'm going to cover it up and make it get, yeah, can even do that. See, now it doesn't look the same anymore, if you see. And you can't really tell. We just did this thanks to thicker and darker paints that just covering up the rest. So I like to use dark paints like these in a very thick layer to just fix mistakes sometimes. It's very convenient. And I keep going, and we're almost done. And you see, it doesn't take that long to paint a realistic leaf or anything realistic when you know the techniques and when you practice them a little bit. And if it's not perfect, if the leaf doesn't look like flawless or anything like that, I mean, it's fine because nothing looks that way, in real life anyways. So we're just fine with it.
we're strategically placing the dark edges on where there's no light that will cast on it, right? Like where the shadows are.
Yes, yes. And
Uh,
to do this, I actually used the reference photo. I didn't invent, I like to kind of rely on a reference to do that. If you don't not sure where to cast the shadows, you can look for ideas, and that will show you how it works. So it's what I do when I'm not sure. But see, it adds to the painting a lot. Like now you can see the leaf is more 3D with the shadows.
by the way, we also have a pretty curious question, audience rather, right here, asking us about what colors are used to make this dark brown? Is there a specific shade or?
No, it's called this one is a burnt umber. Yes, it's a burnt umber shade. But really, if you're using even something like sepia or any brown, it's not really gonna impact the way your leaf is gonna look that much. What really matters, and that's what something I've learned with painting a lot, is not really the shades. Because at the beginning I used to buy all the shades, and now I always use the same ones. What matters is the techniques, and the layering and having shadows and having highlights, that kind of stuff is what's really gonna make the difference in what your painting turns out like. Is what I've noticed. And I always use the same stuff all the time for every painting, whatever it is, a portrait, anything. And we're going to be almost done here. Okay, so we can stop here, and we do have a 3D leaf now.
Oh, well, that's pretty fast, isn't it? We'll just go ahead and go through some things right here real quick, which I want to make sure we are not missing anything. And I'll go ahead and bring you back for our spotlight. There you go. Awesome. Okay, so I believe everyone was just mind blown about the techniques you just showed us today.
Oh, I'm
Um,
glad you liked it.
just a quick recap of the materials that we used today.
Yes.
I think Françoise would be the one to do the honors for that one. Would you mind doing that for them?
Sure. Okay, so I used for paper arche or arches, however you want to pronounce it. It's 100% cotton paper. It's cold pressed. That makes a big difference because cold pressed paper absorbs water better. So hot pressed tends to dry fast. So I use cold pressed, 100% cotton, and it's 300 GSM. That's the weight. That's the thickness of the sheet. So you have arches, arche. What works well too is Winsor and Newton. Same stuff, 100% cotton, 300 GSM, cold pressed. You have also Saunders Waterford, Canson l'Héritage. All these, I use them, and they work fine. Then for the paint brushes, I used Raphael. It's called Le 803. 803 is the reference. It says in French, so yeah, it's 803. And it's petit gris. I'm pretty sure it's the same term. I don't know how you pronounce it, petit gris, maybe. But that's the squirrel natural hair fibers. So yeah, that's a small size, and I like this size because you can do a lot of things with it. And that's how I started painting. I just had this paintbrush at first and a bigger one like this one, and I just used those two. And for detail, I love to use those Silver Brush Black Velvet paintbrushes because they're so thin at the tip. They're really useful to get into all nooks and crannies, and you can also use the sides of the paintbrushes to cover larger areas, so they're super versatile. And then for paints, art philosophy paints. So like I said, the shade, it doesn't really matter. You can pick, for autumn paintings, just yellow, orange, red, green, brown, that just work, and then you mix them together. It doesn't really matter if it's a lemon yellow or just a yellow orange. You see what you have, and yeah, I know it's tempting to want to have all the colors at first, but yeah, you can really, like, usually the simplest is the better. And yeah, and then an X-Acto knife. So it's X and then Acto knife that I used. And then I had a heat gun. It's used for scrapbooking, I believe, to dry my paper fast. So I use that a lot because I'm not patient with the layers. So yeah, I think that's it.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. I think that's very helpful, and that answers Judy's question right here. What are the main colors you use each time? I believe right now Francoise is using art philosophy. She's the brand ambassador, one of the brand ambassadors for the brand, and Elizabeth did mention that she missed this, but will look back. It looks so real. Hands down, we can agree to that, Elizabeth. We've got an interesting question as well. Following up. from Teresa and Michelle. I think these are pretty related questions. Will you be painting at the same speed in the mini workshop? And another one would be, do you ever paint a background with leaves? So I think we can do like a quick recap of the mini workshop right here.
The mini workshop, should I show you the painting maybe at the same
Please
time?
do. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is the painting that I have in store for the mini workshop. So, well, I will be painting a little less fast for the mini workshop. I know I can get it done in the set time, so it will be fine. I mean, we can, take it slower. I think the mini workshop is set up so that since you're painting at the same time, we don't go super fast. So I will take more of my time so you guys can follow through. And then the second question was about the background on the leaves.
Right. And I think this is what you're showing us right now.
Yes, yes. So pretty much here you will learn how to paint a bunch of leaves so it looks realistic without painting all the leaves because that would be very tedious. And plus, the great thing about this painting, the photo I selected for this painting, is that you do have dark areas and light areas in the same painting. And the way to paint leaves is not the same when you paint it on light or when you paint it on dark. It's two different things. So I'll be able to show you that during the mini workshop, and also how to paint the trunks and include all of that in the whole painting, because I understand that's very different than just painting one leaf.
Okay, and I'll just remove the spotlight real quick. Awesome. So I think everyone's pretty much excited already with the mini workshop. Again, that's on November 12th. I just dropped the link in the chat, so you could go ahead and sign up for it. Ingrid has a technical question right here. We're using the artist grade paint of Art Philosophy and Tubes. What
Yes.
about the paints? Okay, and what about the paints in a can of that brand? Are they artist grade as well?
Um, no, I think she's talking about the sets because they do have the watercolor tubes, and then they
Right.
have 12 sets that each have 12 colors in them, and they're just themed sets. And no, these are different types, and I use them a lot too, and I'm very happy with them. But I like to use the tubes, like I use them here today because I can kind of paint everything, and I do have my go-to colors while with the sets, for instance, it's more themed, so you're not gonna get the same feeling from one specific set. You know what I mean? So then tubes are more convenient, just because it's just more of a common color that you find in the tube.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you so much for that. And lastly, if you guys have followed along Francoise's demo today, or like Elizabeth, who will be repeating this live demo, watching this live demo again, and will be posting your work, feel free to join our private Facebook group. That's Etcher Studio Fam, and Francoise is part of that group. She'd definitely love to see your works and what you've created, and I will be dropping a bulk link in a chat. That's going to be the link for Francoise's mini workshop, our Facebook group, our survey form, because we'd love to give you more quality demonstrations as well as more artists like Francoise right here, so that you'll definitely enjoy what you're watching. And also the artist's Instagram handle, which is Blayac Fine Art. Please tag her if you will be posting your works on Instagram. And let's see. There you go. And if there are not. Okay, we've got a follow up question time of the workshop. That's 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on November 12th. Thank you so much, you guys, for. Oh, the tape peeling, the most exciting part.
Yes.
You gotcha. And while you're doing that, Francoise, do you have any final or parting words before we end this session?
Well, I just want to thank you for being with us today. It means a lot to me that you guys showed up to see the process, and thank you for your questions. Also, it's very interesting for me also to see what kind of questions you're wondering about. So that was a great session. I also want to thank you, Kathleen, because you're a great host and really made me feel at ease with the live demo. So thank you very much, and thank you, Etcher, also for this opportunity. So I can't wait to see you guys in the mini workshop.
Thank you so much. And Teresa right here is really, really interested to tag you. To help you with that, Teresa, you can actually tag Françoise right here if you're posting it on Instagram. There's a option on your post to actually tag a specific artist. I think that's the plus sign. So before you post it, you can actually tag Françoise Blayac Fine Art. Or if it's easier for you, you can join our Facebook group at your studio fam. Once you post it there, and Françoise will be able to see uh, your work, and she'll definitely give you feedback on it. So
Yeah, I do check social media and I answer. So, you can tag me anywhere, like Facebook or Instagram, and I'll give you feedback, no problem. If you want to also ask me additional questions, I mean, feel free. It's fine.
awesome.
I'll be happy
All
to
right.
answer.
That's good to know. And this was a pretty fun and detailed session. Pretty mind blowing for most, considering that we've done a realistic autumn leaf. So, until next time, you guys will be waiting for your works to be posted online, and we'll be waiting for you to attend Francoise's mini workshop. And until then, make more art. Bye for now.
Bye.